working with us. People following up at 6 in the morning to see whether the food is ready so that the food will reach on time, and following up at 9 in the night to see whether a migrant group has received rations. It's been really a joy to watch officers taking such good responsibility and care for the needy and the people who have been really suffering a great deal in this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Jayendra. I was having a long quote from Adi Shankara as a build-up for Dr. Janaki Raman, but one of our audience, and incidentally, we've got 100 people now logged into this program, and we have a question from Krishna Ramachandran, which I think ideally leads to what Dr. Janaki Raman does. It says, while many organizations are providing food and basic needs, how shall we build empathy in these times and retain that later? I think in those two lines, he's kind of summed up everything as to the psychological impact of this traumatic situation. And so I'm now going to ask Dr. Janaki Raman to please speak and tell us about what is being done and what can be done.
Sure, Mr. Sriram. Thank you so much and for the entire team for the opportunity. In fact, we from Chakkaram Foundation were very clear on one aspect before getting this activity initiated. Point number one, the situation of the inmates, whoever were not able to travel, this is one sector that we wanted to concentrate upon, because switching between the channels at home, we get into a lot of stress. Like, we look upon TVs and then, understand what happens outside and imagine what can happen probably. So this gives us an individual stress. But however, the inmates who are here, who had no communication, at least for the first 2 days, to understand what is happening around and why we are being as an inmate, a high level of stress, anxiety, and a kind of a depression can also happen with these people. This was envisaged by us, and at the right time we requested Chennai Corporation, and they were kind enough to give us this opportunity to work with the people. Now we are approaching 96 shelters, which includes community centers and shelters of corporation, where 5,602 people are now being an inmate. I would rather say now being an happy inmates rather. So these people have got different thoughts with them. And we decided a strategy of making it into 4 teams. And these 4 teams will visit across the portions of Chennai. And these team members are preferably multilingual. Because when we talk about their emotions and then their feelings, it would be better to go with their language to touch them more and to understand it better. So this gave us, and we decided to make 2 rounds, one after the next week, the second round. The first round, we were able to understand their feeling. And this gave us an idea how to work with them, because not everybody can be not everybody can be approached so easily and then given a counseling. They may not be able to accept it. So that area we were concentrating upon, and we really took a positive psychology approach and some suggestive psychotherapy methods to make them active. And in the shelters, we gave them some activities, divided them into teams, 2 groups or something, identified a leader from themselves, train them on certain activities which they can spend productively and effectively 20 minutes at least a day. So this makes them to wait for the next day to do the same activity. The 20 minutes is not a limitation. It can even go for hours together as well. If they're so this one thing ensures a harmony, because in many of the stations, we see people from Tamil Nadu, from Odisha, from West Bengal, Jharkhand, Assam, all of them have got one thing in common, which is Hindi, but which also at times becomes difficult for people to understand. So identifying them into groups and then getting into their mind is one most critical important thing. Secondly, we Chakkaram Foundation also do certain telecounseling over phone to people who are quarantined or isolated themselves, because this is an area where advisors doesn't help. I mean, a real counseling, getting into their mind, listening them is more important. And we really felt a positive feedback from all these people. There is some person to come and listen to us. And that itself made a lot of motivation. And many programs like expressing their talents, we were able to see a lot of people play who also have got guitars with them, playing that, and singing songs, cutting jokes, and all those aspects were also positively seen. And one thing we were able to strongly do is that we were able to give them a good amount of hope that in the coming days, the mental strength of yours is really required, because what we foresee here is that a 20 or 30 days of lockdown duration will really make them feel inactive. All those days they have been working for 10 hours, 12 hours as a laborers, and getting back after a 30 days of stagnation will literally give them a mental breakdown as well. So what we did in that verge, what we did is that, see, there are about some carpenters, there are about some kind of building contracting laborers. So we said, what is the challenge that you have faced in your industry? For example, if you are a caterer, how do you cook for 1,000 people? If you're a plumber, how to make a repair of a small things at home? These kind of hope kind of discussions also happened with the people. So they formed a group, they discussed about, so at least 10 of them now know how to work upon this area. So this is something we found it. And secondly, they are literally happy about what they are today. This is not just for the forum I'm addressing, because for a person, the socio-psychological need is basically one thing, the shelter and food. I mean, rest of the factors are also there. However, the first word that we use and tell them is that you are the only secured community in the society right now available, without any kind of infected situation or something, and you can be very free, literally in a shelter. And this is an opportunity given to you, like for 20 or 30 days. So they are taking it in the positive note, and they are happy. The second round, when we go, they welcome with an applause, literally, which we never expected in many of the stations. So irrespective of language, the harmony is quite good. The care that is being given by the revenue officials at that particular location, I must thank this also, give you a thank, because the entire team as a family, and this feeling was also quite comfortable with them. So this is a briefing about the activity that we do at the moment.
Thank you, Dr. Janaki Raman. I was so reminded of in 1947, when partition happened and refugees were pouring into Delhi. And the big challenge was how to keep the refugees happy in the refugee camps. And they ran Mickey Mouse cartoons morning to evening on large screens with a film, with cine projector, which are very, very related to what Jayendra said, and also which I think Dr. Janaki Raman may have to field. One of the questions is from Mr. R.K. Raghavan, who himself was an extremely senior official in the police, director of the CBI, and then recently the ambassador to Cyprus. And he has asked, I'm going to field a couple of questions to you, Dr. Janaki Raman, because I think they all come under your perspective at this, your purview at this point of time. So one of them, Mr. Raghavan's question is, what do you have to say about the role of the police in the current scenario? What are the positives and the negatives? I would like to probably reword it a little. And yes, the police has played an excellent job in this whole thing, a very stressful situation. Going forward, what do you think could be some of the aspects of counseling that the police could take up?
True. A very, very true and a valid point and question. Psychologically, whenever there is an impact, when you take with respect to the professions, there are two professions which are very critical and vulnerable to prone to more of psychological impacts to them. One is, the first and foremost, is nursing, because you see patients, you take their emotions, and then it is back of the mind, this will give a big impact. The second condition is policing, because it involves a criminal psychology as well, to understand the situation. See, they'll have to really bifurcate between a real needy person and also a rule breaker. Now, because of the rule breaker, their attitude and then behavior also changes, and this impacts a very few amount of a public who is also really in need. Now, I would rather rate there should always be a mental stability in handling the situation. However, this pandemic was not, affected elsewhere, or we have no experience of handling such a pandemic situation. And one thing, if the police regulation goes high, then the psychology of people also changes. They think, okay, something extreme is happening. So to avoid the stress level, government will also not force this much of regulations immediately, or through the police. The policing will not go strict day by, once and overnight. So what happened is, the police also have been doing a proper policing in levels, like mildly controlling the situation, heavily controlling the situation, and there are a lot of humorous activities being done by the police officials as well. This itself is a stress buster for them and for the public. However, a kind of genuinity in understanding the real situation is required. In fact, the commissioner of police was also mentioning, everybody who comes out has got a medical prescription and says he has to go to the medical shop. So they'll also have a difficulty in getting it realized. Now, the responsibility neither lies with the police nor with the nursing staffs. It lies with every individual to be socially responsible, because this is a condition where the pandemic cannot be controlled once it breaks out. So it's not about blaming anybody. However, their mental health is also required. So what we have also planned from Chakkaram Foundation is to give a mental health support to the firemen, to the police officials, and to the corporation staffs, whoever are there day and night with all these people, which will literally make them come as a stress level as down. Because post the pandemic, the immigrants or anybody who is staying here will get back to the normalcy. However, the workload for the other officials will increase. So this is one area we really need, the entire society need to really work upon. And we have seen a good amount of responsibility with police, whereas the social responsibility with the individuals who move out for no reason are to be controlled by themselves.
Thank you.
I hope I have answered that.
You have.
I have a small request. Can all the questions be redirected to the Q&A box, please? So it's easier for Sriram to kind of review it. Thank you.
I noticed that, but I thought there was a.
So Q&A, Sriram. If you see,
I am looking at the Q&A, but it's just jumping. It's going. There are questions coming all the time. So there was a question here. Okay, my apologies to whoever asked it, but I did read it a little while ago. I've not, and my vision is never very great in these things. So I just wanted to say there was this question which said, what is going to happen post this opening up? What is the psychological counseling that is needed once people get on to working? We've had psychological counseling for lockdown situations. What are the challenges that are going to face people when they get back to work? This is a question that's been asked over here.
True. We need to differentiate it into two areas. Area one is for the general public, right? The second one is for the working people. Now, even very, very theoretically also, the Maslow's hierarchy says the job security is the first thing. There should be a kind of confidence that between the management and the individual that, okay, your job is secure. This feeling they have to get it, or some sort of a soothing talks to the employees can help having a productive employment people. Like, right now on, the messages can go from the companies, because the lockdown is not only a mental relaxation. It is not at all a mental relaxation literally for these employees who are, worrying about their job. Rather, it would give them a stress on, how do we handle the situation post this. Secondly, for the public, this is going to be a situation not for everyone, but for certain people. We call it as a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like, post this pandemic, how am I going to come out? This was faced on many occasions, like Ebola virus from various other countries. And this situation, people may not know, am I safe to go to a mall? Am I safe to go to a place where in public? Will this virus be inside a person? These are all the psychological fear which will be there with the people. But however, the practices like, washing hands and the hand hygiene and rest of the practices, social distancing, if it is practiced on a regular basis, this can gradually come down. And we from Chakkaram Foundation are also happy to say that, for the employees of cabin pressure who have got, being at home and not going to work, you can also, give us a call and give us a shout. We are there to support those organizations in a webinar or something like, we can do this, because it is all that we do now at this moment is purely for a give back to the society. Like, end of the day, everybody has to become socially responsible by understanding this many panelists who have done a lot of things to the society. There are many things that I can do. This automatically comes to them. And secondly, with respect to the